Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Pravikacharya Ashtrata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Pravikacharya Ashtrata Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sehiko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Arigaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Samakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Natakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam hṛd-deśe Nasta Preyo Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 1, Text 38. Ashapan Kupita Evam Yuvam Vasam Na Charhataha Rajas Tamobhyam Rahite Padamule Madhudvishaha Patishtam Asurim Yonim Balisau Yatam Asho Ataha Ashapan Kupita Evam Yuvam Vasam Na Charhataha Rajastamobhyam Rahati Padamule Madhu Visaha Patishtam Asurim Yonim Balisau Yatam Ashvitaha Asapan Kupita Evam Yuvam Vasam Na Charhateha Rajastamobhyam Rahate Padamule Madhudvishaha Patishtam Asurim Yonim Balishau Yatam Ashvataha Ashapan Kupita Evam Yuvam Vasam Na Charhataha Rajastamobhyam Rahati Padamule Madhudvishaha Patishtam Asurim Yonim Balishau Yatam Ashvataha. Please chant. Ashapan Kupita Evam Ashapan kupita evam. Twijamani. Okay. Synonyms. Ashapan, cursed. Kupitaha, being full of anger. Evam, thus. Yuvam, you too. Vasam, residence. Na, not. Cha, and. Arhataha, deserve. Rajatamobhyam, from passion and ignorance. Rahate, free. Padamule, at the lotus feet. Madhudvishaha, of Vishnu, the slayer of the Madhu demon. Papishtam, most sinful. Asurim, demoniac. Yonim, to a womb. Balishau, of you two fools. Yatam, go. Ashu, quickly thereafter. Ataha, therefore. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thus checked by the doorkeepers Jai and Vijay, Sanandana and the other great sages very angrily cursed them. Quote, "You two foolish doorkeepers," they said, "being agitated by the material qualities of passion and ignorance, you are unfit to live at the shelter of Madhudvisha's lotus feet, which are free from such modes. It would be better for you to go immediately to the material world and take your birth in a family of most sinful asuras." End quote. We'll read a few verses. While Jai and Vijay, thus cursed by the sages, were falling to the material world, they were addressed as follows by the same sages, who were very kind to them. "O doorkeepers, after 3 births you will be able to return to your positions in Vaikuntha, for then the duration of the curse will have ended." Text 40. These two associates of the Lord, Jai and Vijay, later descended to the material world, taking birth as the 2 sons of Diti, Hiranyakashipu being the elder and Hiranyaksha the younger. They were very much respected by the Datyas and the Danavas, demoniac species. Text 41. Appearing as Nrsimhadev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Hari, killed Hiranyakashipu. When the Lord delivered the planet Earth, which had fallen in the Garbhodaka ocean, Hiranyaksha tried to hinder him. And then the Lord as Varaha killed Hiranyaksha. Text 42. Desiring to kill his son Prahlad, who was a great devotee of Lord Vishnu, Hiranyakashipu tortured him in many ways. Text 43. The Lord, the super soul of all living entities, is sober, peaceful, and equal to everyone. Since the great devotee Prahlad was protected by the Lord's potency, Hiranyakashipu was unable to kill him, in spite of endeavoring to do so in various ways. Purport. In this verse, the word sarva-bhūtānāṁ is very significant. Īśvaraḥ sarva-bhūtānāṁ hṛd-deśe rjuna tiṣṭhati. The Lord is equally situated in the core of everyone's heart. Thus he cannot be envious of anyone or friendly to anyone. For him, everyone in this is the same. Although he is sometimes seen to punish someone, this is exactly like a father's punishing his child for the child's welfare. The Supreme Lord's punishment is also a manifestation of the Lord's equality. Therefore, the Lord is described as prashantam samadarshanam. Although the Lord has to execute his will properly, he is equipoised in all circumstances. He is equally disposed toward everyone. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitamtam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Pri Vancha Kalpataribhyascha Kripa Sandhibhya Evacha Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So according to the Vedas, there's a hell known as Put, and a son who can deliver his forefathers from this hellish condition is called a Putra. So Srila Prabhupada explains that the purpose of marriage is to beget Vaishnavas, God-conscious children. Nowadays, it's the opposite, right? And sometimes there's unwanted population. Krishna describes that in the Bhagavad Gita. And on book distribution, you see this all the time. The father and the mother, they treat their children very poorly, sometimes very harshly, actually. And it's to the point where they see their children as a burden, a very great burden. So the Vedic culture, it's nice because in this pastime of Lord Nrsingadev, Prahlad Maharaj, he asked Nrsingadev, please excuse my father. And Nrsingadev says, not only is he liberated, but 14 generations are liberated. So Srila Prabhupada, he says, to become a devotee is itself liberation. And so when Jai and Vijay was cursed by the 4 Kumaras, they mentioned 2 modes, passion and ignorance. They said, you 2 foolish doorkeepers, they said, being agitated by the material qualities of passion and ignorance, you are unfit to live at the shelter of Visha's lotus feet, which are free from such modes. So this reminded me of a Sankirtan story. I was distributing books, and there's a lot of people that you meet. And sometimes, we're not criticizing, but some of them are Christians. So this man said, I was trying to get him to the table. And he said, no, you're going to hell. Jesus is the only way. So I said, let me talk to you, sir. So I called him over. He came to the table, and I said, but have you conquered lust? and he was with his family, and there was children there. And then I asked him, have you conquered greed? Have you conquered anger? So these three, Krishna describes that these are the three gates that lead to hell. Kama, Krodha, Tata, Lobhas. And so a lot of people and religion, they focus on the sin, but they don't focus on the cause of the sin, right? So these three modes actually inspire people to commit sinful activities. And then Krishna says that one should give these up, or tyajit, to throw them far away, to give these up, and then they lead to the degradation of the soul. And so I asked this man, how's your lust, And I can tell he was still very active with his wife, So I asked him, how old are you, sir? And he said, I'm 56. And I said, okay. And I said, how's your pride, So these people, they don't know that there are actually more greater sins than just not believing in Christ, right? And they think the only way is, people always say that the only way is through Jesus. So I asked him, in mathematics, the only way to get to 5, is it 3 plus 2 only? They said no. There's many ways to get to 5. 6 minus 1 is 5, things like that. And so he said, that's a good way to put it. So I told him Jesus Christ, Lord Jesus Christ, had to preach according to the time, place, and circumstance. And while I was explaining these 3 gates to him, he said, I want to learn more about these gates, like that. So I handed him a Bhagavad Gita. And I said, please don't think that this book, although it's from India, is only meant for the Hindus or the Indians. And I said, this book is meant for everybody, for the whole world. And he appreciated that. And then he said, can I give you a donation? And I said, you can give a donation if you would like. And he gave $20, a Christian man. So here in these verses, we can understand that sometimes a curse is actually a blessing in disguise. And so I'll state a few examples. When Narada Muni, when he was traveling or passing through the heavenly planets, he saw the 2 sons of Kuvera. What were their names? Okay. Nala Kuvera and Manigriva. And Srila Prabhupada, he said they were sporting naked with some young girls in this lake. And they were intoxicated. So when they saw Narada Muni, they didn't bother covering themselves up, their bodies. But the ladies, when they saw a saintly person, they covered themselves right away. So then Narada cursed them to become trees. And Srila Prabhupada explains that trees, they're naked. And then Prabhupada says that's the difference between animals and humans. Animals, they don't have clothes, they're naked. So then Prabhupada, he says, human being must be well dressed, that is human civilization. So he cursed these 2 sons of Kuvera to become trees. It was actually a blessing because they were able to see Krishna face to face. And when Krishna pulled them down by this wooden grinding mortar, they were very pleased. Not only that, but they went back to the heavenly planets where they came from. And so when Narada cursed them to be trees, it was actually a blessing. And also in the previous canto, do you guys remember who was cursed? It was a king. Okay. Chitraketu Maharaj. He was cursed by Parvati because King Chitraketu, he saw Lord Shiva in the assembly of sages that Parvati, she was sitting on his lap. So he kind of criticized him. So Parvati, she didn't see this as a joke. She saw it as a disrespect, not only to her, but to her husband. So Parvati cursed King Chitraketu to become a demon. And then he became the famous Vritrasura. And Vritrasura was actually a devotee in a demon's body. And when Chitraketu was cursed, how did he react? Yeah. He said that he descended from his airplane. He bowed before her with great humility and accepted the curse. So devotee, sometimes we are We are criticized, but we should learn to tolerate. And a devotee, Srila Prabhupada says, should always be very humble and meek, and should offer all respect to others, especially to superiors. And superiors also mean father and mother. Srila Prabhupada says, one should not be displeased when a saintly person curses someone. His curse indirectly is a blessing. I remember when I was on book distribution, and this person, he was saying a lot of negative things about, the movement. And he was crippled, and I could have said something, but I didn't. But anyway, I asked him, why do you hate the Hare Krishna movement? And he said, it's all brainwashing, And then, so I asked him, actually, everyone that's taken to Krishna consciousness is happy. And then he said, do you see the smile on my face? He said, yeah. And I said, look at it. This is the result of practicing Krishna consciousness. But for you, you're not practicing, so therefore told me you're miserable. And then so he was walking and he was kind of cursing me, like, he was also saying bad words. And last Sunday I met a Mataji. As she was walking to the table, she said, she was tapping her head. She said, I'm trying to remember the founder of your movement. So I took a picture of Srila Prabhupada, and it says, his name is Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He said, yes, I met him here at Balboa Park. Yeah. And then I asked her, how old were you? And she said, I was probably in high school, like 16 years old. So she met Srila Prabhupada. And she appreciated the movement, although she's not practicing herself, but she appreciated the Hare Krishna movement. And so another example is Gajendra. No, she didn't want to take a book. But she was showing respect for the books, actually. And then I asked her, would you like to take one for a friend? And she said, no, thank you, like that. But another example is the Gajendra story. A Gandharva, his name was King Huhu, and he became the crocodile because Devala Rishi, he cursed him. And Srila Prabhupada writes that instead of taking millions of births to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he only took one birth. So it's actually a blessing. Imagine skipping all these lifetimes to finally go back to Krishna. It's a very good blessing. And Gajendra was also delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it freed him from the curse of Agastya Muni. And now Gajendra, he was formerly a Vaishnav. And he was the king of a country known as Pandya. It was in South India. And in his previous life, he was known as Yumna Maharaj. And he retired from family life, and then he went to the Malaya Hills. And so he was practicing meditation, and he was actually absorbed in ecstasy of love of Godhead. And one day the great sage Agastya Muni arrived, and he saw him sitting down silently, and he didn't show the etiquette of welcoming a Brahmana, so he cursed him. He said, I curse you to have a dull, dumb body of an elephant. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that an elephant is powerful. It can destroy houses, gardens, but comparing its size to its intelligence is very small. So he cursed Yumna Maharaj to take the body of an elephant. But in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that he was delivered by who? Yeah, Vishnu. And the crocodile, he was delivered by the Sudarshan Chakra of Lord Vishnu also. So these two animals, the crocodile and Gajendra, the elephant, they were delivered after being cursed. And then Srila Prabhupada, he says that Dhruva Maharaj assumed his spiritual body by the touch of Lord Vishnu also. So Dhruva Maharaj, that's another story, right? His stepmother said, you're not qualified to take birth in my womb. Imagine that, a mother saying that, to a 5-year-old boy, 7-year-old boy. And then so, when... What did she say? Okay. Yeah. So if you want to sit on the lap of your father, you have to take birth in my womb. So basically saying you have to kill yourself. So Dhruva Maharaj, he asked his mother, what should I do? He said, don't be angry, And then what she said is that your stepmother said that it's true. You go to the forest if you want to see God, if you want to find God. So Narada Muni instructed him on how to do a deity worship, rudimentary deity worship. And so while performing this, he achieved the favor of Krishna. And then he was able to see darshan of Krishna. And the most famous example of a curse is Parikshit Maharaj. He was cursed to die in 7 days. In 7 days, I asked people on book distribution, if you had 7 days to live, how would you spend those days? And people would say, I want to spend it with my loved ones, with my family. I want to enjoy as much as I can. So I showed him the Bhagavatam. I said, this describes a king. He was actually cursed to die in 7 days. And for us, 5 minutes is not guaranteed. So then they become curious. What did he do? And I said, this king did the opposite of what you did. I said, this king, he renounced his kingdom and his family. And then I told him that he started asking important questions. How should one prepare for death? What should one think of at the time of death? And then this is how the Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken. So, and Parikshit Maharaj, he was cursed by an immature Brahmin boy. And Srila Prabhupada mentioned that he had the power to counter curse it, but he didn't. We accepted it as a desire from Krishna. And so as devotees, whatever inconveniences, whatever difficulties, and if it looks like suffering, we should try to see it as a blessing, to see it as purification, maybe from a previous action in a past life. And to see why Krishna has put us in this situation, and to see it as a way to grow and to learn from it. So therefore, devotees, whatever life brings them, success and failure, they will always have a positive view on Krishna, for Krishna. I was distributing books, and the daughter, she wanted to get books. And then the father said, let's go see the flowers and then we'll come back. And the daughter was probably like 16, 17 years old. And then I was distributing books, and then when this couple passed, the father came back. And he said, I don't want you to give these books to my daughter. I said, why? And she said, I want her to experience it on her own. And I said, sir, you can save her from a lot of suffering if you give her these books. And he said, yes, I know, but now is not the time. So I said, you're not doing her a great favor by ignoring these books. And I told him, you know the power of these books, so why don't you give it to her? And then he's told me something interesting. He said, she's not ready, and I'm not ready to tell her. Imagine that. And I told her about karma and reincarnation, and he knew that it was somewhat real, but he didn't want to give the books to her daughter, so that's unfortunate. And so these are my two favorite pastimes, Prahlad Maharaj and a jawmill. A jawmill, it shows the power of the holy name, right? He named his son Narayan, and when death was approaching, he called out for his son's name, Narayana. And the Vishnu-dutas, they appeared on the scene, and they stopped the Yama-dutas from taking his soul, from dragging him to hell. So when I came to the temple, before I moved in, I would get books from this lobby, and one of those books was Second Chance. And I was so interested by not only by the title, but the content inside, Someone about to die, and then they chanted the holy name of Krishna. So this convinced me that chanting the holy name is very powerful. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And Ajamil was a very sinful man. You know, he married a prostitute. He had 10 children with this prostitute. And it says even in his old age, 80 years old, he still had a young child. That means he was still active. And so, but he was delivered just by chanting Narayana. And then the other reason why I like a Jamil story, because it gives us hope, right? You know, who are we? You know, we're not pure devotees. We're practicing devotees, aspiring. And so just by chanting, we can become purified. Our mentality can always try to think of Krishna. And Prahlad Maharaj, the reason why I was intrigued by this pastime was because a father was trying to kill his son. I remember my spiritual master, he says natural allies are now becoming enemies. Mother and father, wife and husband, right? In this Kali Yuga, it's not so, they're all separating. They're becoming enemies. So generally a father has affection for his son. But here, Hiranyakashipu, he wanted to kill his son. And Srila Prabhupada says, what was Prahlad Maharaj's fault? He was a devotee. That's it. So, and I remember Srila Prabhupada, he was explaining that even since time immemorial, devotees, we don't have enemies, but people see us as their enemies, right? We're just chanting, we're doing Harinam on the streets, and then people throw things at us. People mock us, right? People start yelling over us. So the devotees, although we don't have enemies, people see us as enemies. And Prahlad Maharaj, he was still very obedient to his father. He didn't disrespect him or anything like that. And his father tried killing him in so many ways. Do you guys remember some of those ways? Boil in oil. Crushed by an elephant, snakes, thrown off a cliff. And Krishna saved him in all these circumstances. And then finally, Lord Nrsimhadev appeared, you know, when he couldn't take it. He says, my devotee's been harassed. So Krishna appeared as Lord Nrsimhadev. And I love this pastime too because it shows that a demon, although he may have boons, right, basically immortal. Hiranyakashipu, he asked Lord Brahma, I don't want to be killed inside or outside of this house. I don't want to be killed in the air, on the ground, in the sea. I don't want to be killed by weapons, right? And he said, I don't want to be killed in the, what else was his conditions? Morning, noon, and nighttime. And so Krishna, he says, among gamblers, I'm the cheat. So you can't cheat Krishna. And then Krishna appeared as a half man and half lion. So he was neither animal, man, and then he killed him with his claws. So it's not a weapon. It's part of his body. And so when I read this pastime of Prahlad Maharaj being saved by Lord Nrsimhadev, I was very impressed, you know, how Krishna protects his devotees. And so that gave me more faith and conviction. Okay. So I'll end with a few Sankirtan stories. I met two young men. One was from Iran and one was from Pakistan. And then they didn't want to take books, but he said, I have a question. He said, how do you meditate? You know, do you think of nothing? Do you just think of void? Do you think of, what do you think of? So I told him that the mind is compared to a little child. If you tell the child to sit down, to stay quiet in one place, how long will you be successful? He said, not very long. So I said, the mind is similarly like a child. And then I told him, but if you engage the child, if you give the child a toy to play with, then he stays busy. So I said, we don't let the mind wander, we give the mind something to think about. And then he said, what is that? And I said, it's called the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then he also said, but what is the, and then I asked him actually, I said, sounds have a very potent effect. When you listen to rock music, you become, agitated like that. When you listen to classical music, you become peaceful. So I said similar, by chanting spiritual sounds, it penetrates the heart and the mind. And then I asked him, and the most important spiritual sound is chanting the holy names of God. And then so when he heard this, he said, wow, this is so sublime. I've never heard this before. Because, they pray also, And then they also, I think, chant the names of God. So when I said this, it hit a spot in their heart, And then he said, how do I learn more about this Hare Krishna mantra? I gave him a book, which is Bhakti Joseph's favorite book, Chant and Be Happy. And then he took the book, and then he said, how much can I give you? And I said, it costs around $3 to print this book. He gave $5. And then when he was walking away with his friend, he said, chanting the holy names of God. So I smiled, and then they went on their way. And then so also I want to glorify Yamuna Pati Prabhu, if you're listening. Yamuna Pati Prabhu, he told Bhakta Joseph, he said, one day I want to be like you. And then Joseph said, what? What do you mean? And he said, I want to be retired, like that. And now when people retire, what do? They play golf, they try to waste their time in so much frivolous activities. But Yamuna Pati Prabhu, what is he doing? Book distribution. He could be doing anything with his time, but he's going out and distributing books. And he's always asking myself and Dvija Mani how to improve his Sankirtan, What books should I have? What should I tell people? What should I have on my table? So he wants to do better in his service. So Yamuna Pati Prabhu, you're an inspiration to all of us. Hare Krishna. And so the December marathon's coming up. So we're going to think of ways to engage those that want to go out on book distribution. And if you can't do that, you can also sponsor books, and we'll do the distributing books for you. And on our way to LA yesterday, Dr. Tyler, he said he's going to go out on books. Yeah. So everyone's doing their thing for the December marathon. So please join us, and you can try to contact me if you have my phone number or if you want to let me know. Okay, it's 8:30. Is there any questions and comments? Yes, Dvijamani Prabhu.
How often Tyler's going to go out?
Well, he said he's going to try to go out.
I don't know. I'm going to shadow you guys for a while.
Okay, he's going to shadow us. But I told him that you might do well in walking book distribution, You can approach people, things like that. But I think you said like at least twice a week, something like that. Yeah. And you never know, in the scores, Bhakta Tyler distributed 100 Maha big books, one day. Yeah. So we should try to inspire people. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Okay. Krish?
Yeah, just this morning I was thinking I had an encounter with a Christian woman on the bus this morning. So I was like, how can I didn't quite have enough time to get into it with her, but I was like thinking to myself, how can I preach, or how can I reach, touch these people? And I appreciate you mentioning one of the pastimes where you were like, saying that, Jesus Christ manifested for a certain time and circumstance. So now I can build on that. So thank you very much for reading my mind or something.
And also Srila Prabhupada, he didn't want us to argue with them, because it's like talking to a brick wall, and I experienced that, yeah. But we can also just leave them with a good impression, Like, wow, this person, although he has a different philosophy or view, is still very respectful. Like at the park, there's the Jehovah's Witnesses. And every time they pass by, they always wave at me, because I always have a meaningful conversation with them, you know. We're trying to inspire people to take God consciousness very seriously, and they appreciate the devotees' work. You know.
Haribo.
Yes, Ravita Prabhu?
Many of you know, I assume, that Prabhupada, he would talk with priests a lot. You know, they would come to visit him, even nuns, like that, meet religious, you know. And one of the most fascinating things that came out of that is Prabhupada's statement, you know, that's immortalized in the title of the BTG article, because it was a conversation. Christ and Krishna, the name is the same. And that's often a very fascinating thing for Christians to learn, you know, because it's not immediately obvious, the similarity between Christ and Krishna, the name. But if you think about it, well, it's really something. And Prabhupada said, yes, in India, you know, oftentimes some people who are named Krishna, they'll get kind of a nickname, Krishna. So there you have the T in there, Krishna, you know. So I think that's probably in the science of self-realization. So if someone is open to at least, you know, hear about the books, you can show them that conversation, and if they don't faint, then they'll probably take a book.
Yeah, that title is called Understanding Christ and Krishna. Like that. And sometimes, thank you for reminding me, I'll show that chapter also. I said, if you want to understand Jesus Christ and Krishna, you should read this book, you know. And I told him you'll find a lot of similarities, actually. Yeah.
Well known at all, but Satyaraj, he's been writing. He's a born writer. He's a initiated devotee. He joined where I did in Brooklyn around the same time. And I learned when Madhusudan departed, he sent in a remembrance that he made him a devotee. He saw him. Madhusudan was on the subway. And we would go on the subways. Believe it or not, even I went on the subway a few times, you know, distributing. And so he saw Satyaraj reading something, and he said, "What are you reading?" He said, "Oh, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita." And it wasn't Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And he said, "That book is killing you." What? What is that all about? You know, so he got his attention, and he eventually invited him to the temple. He came. Prabhupada was just coming in a few weeks, so he got to meet Prabhupada, so he became a devotee. So he compiled something. A little pamphlet called You Mean That's in the Bible? That's what the title of it was. Mm-hmm. And all kinds of quotes from the Bible that were relative, you know, similar to things in our Shastra. He said, well, and in the Bhagavad Gita says this is similar, you know, like that. Now, if that's available, that might be something you want to put on a table, you know, to have for the Christians. Because they'll probably take it, you know, it's for $1 you can get it, you know. So I'll inquire and see if that's available in Mass.
Thank you for reminding me. I have one more story. There was a man, he came to my table, and he was kind of saying, oh, is meditating means just thinking of nothing, you know, like that. So eventually I found out that he was Christian. So long story short, I said, have you read Bhagavad Gita? He said, no. And I said, I read the Bible. And I said, so you're actually closed-minded. And then he kind of stepped back. He said, you're right, I am closed-minded, you know. So I said, read the Bhagavad Gita and see what you think. And he said, okay. So he promised to read a Bhagavad Gita. And I said, as it is. So I handed him the Bhagavad Gita. And then he said, do you want me to pay for this? And I said, well, you're going to spend your money on other nonsense things, right? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, look at your hand, it's a cup of coffee, you know. So I said, how much do you spend on coffee? So he told me the number. And I said, we just asked for a donation. He said, he reached in his pocket, he gave $10. He said, this is all I have. And I said, sir, this is most kind of you, you know, like that. So he took the book, and then he said, when he, you know, people, they always, as they're walking away, they'll repeat something that they had with the devotee, you know. So he said, closed-minded, you know, when he was walking away. So I told him you should be open-minded, like that. Okay. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.